It's Saturday. The chart on your screen looks like a trapdoor. Silver is down hard, something like a 30% air pocket, from the 120s into the 80s. But the price crash isn't the part that should make you lean closer. The part that should make you pause is what happens after the crash. The sudden vanishing of physical liquidity, the two prices problem, and the whispers that a major US bank might be sitting in the wrong seat when the music stops. Tonight, we're not doing hype. We're doing mechanics. Because if there's a real risk here, it won't announce itself with a siren. It will show up as plumbing failures, spreads, premiums, margins, delivery delays, and then suddenly, someone can't meet a call. This is the silver default. And the question is simple. Is a major US bank about to crack under the weight of paper silver? A big down day in silver can happen for boring reasons. Leverage gets crowded, liquidity thins, stops trigger, and forced selling turns a dip into a waterfall. If you're long paper silver on margin, a violent move down is not a theory. It's a math problem. You either add collateral or you're liquidated. And when many traders are forced to do the same thing at the same time, it doesn't feel like a market, it feels like gravity. But here's the twist. A paper price crash can happen while physical metal is getting harder to source. That sounds backwards, until you remember how silver is priced. Most spot discovery in the West is paper, futures, options, swaps, synthetic exposure. That paper sets the headline. Physical follows, until it can't. This is where the default rumor gets oxygen. Right now, traders are sharing numbers that look like a divorce. Western paper price roughly the mid-80s. Eastern physical prints being quoted far higher into the 120s. That's not a 2% inconvenience. That's a canyon. Now, premiums can exist for normal reasons. Taxes, import rules, local demand spikes, refinery bottlenecks, logistics, currency controls. A modest premium is not a scandal, but a persistent 30-40% gap, if it's real and sustained, is a flare. It suggests one market is trading a claim, while another market is paying up for the thing itself. Think of it like airline tickets. If one website sells seats cheap, but the actual plane has almost no seats left, the paper price can lie, right up until boarding. When the gap grows, the question becomes, can paper be converted into metal without stress, or will the system quietly push people into cash settlement, delays, substitutions, and rolls? That's where the word default gets whispered. Not always correctly, but loudly. A skeptical viewer will say, if silver is cheap in one place and expensive in another, won't arbitrage close the gap? In theory, yes. In practice, the bridge between paper and metal is not a button, it's a chain. To close the gap, you have to buy the contract, post margin, survive the volatility, stand for delivery, pay the fees, take bars that meet a specific spec, arrange transport and insurance, move it through customs, possibly refine or recast it to the form local buyers want, then finally sell it into the high premium market. That's weeks, not seconds, and it requires balance sheet, not bravery. So when you see a big gap, it doesn't automatically mean fraud. It can mean the pipeline is congested. It can mean the metal is spoken for. It can mean the people who normally do arbitrage decided the trade isn't worth the risk. And that last point matters most. If the smartest, best capitalized players step back, the gap becomes information. You've probably heard a figure circulating, roughly $1.3 billion in total fines tied to precious metals misconduct across multiple big banks over the last several years, plus traders doing real time for spoofing. Whether that exact total is 1.3B or 1.1B or 1.6B, the point is the same. This market has receipts, so when today's tape looks familiar, people don't need imagination. They already have precedent, but precedent is not proof. The right move is to treat it like a smoke alarm. It doesn't tell you where the fire is, only that you should check the house. Let's talk about what a crash looks like in modern markets. It often starts with one aggressive sell wave. Then liquidity providers, often automated, do what they're designed to do. They pull quotes to recalibrate. That creates a moment where the screen shows trades, but not real depth. It's a hallway with the lights off. Stops trigger, market orders chase air, and the price can fall through levels that would normally have buyers because the buyers are temporarily gone. This is why people swear the buy button disappeared. Sometimes it literally did for a broker. More often, the buy button was there, but the market behind it was thin. If you've never watched an order book during a vacuum, you don't understand how fast a normal market can become abnormal. Here's another reason the default rumor spreads. Most people don't know what they actually own. A futures contract is a financial instrument with a delivery option. It is not the same thing as a bar in your hand. Delivery is a process with gates, notice periods, approved bar lists, approved warehouses, warehouse receipts, and categories that matter. You'll hear two words a lot. Eligible and registered. Eligible metal is in the system, but not necessarily available for delivery. Registered metal is the category set aside for delivery. So when people compare open interest to registered inventory, they're trying to answer one question. If too many paper holders ask for metal at once, can the system meet it without incentives? Most of the time, the system doesn't need everyone to take delivery. It needs enough confidence that they could. That's why a physical premium, especially a persistent one, hits like a hammer. It tests that confidence. If a major institution were truly stressed, you'd usually see it indirectly first. A bank or clearing member doesn't explode on camera. It misses a margin call. Then it scrambles for funding. Then it reduces risk, selling what it can, widening spreads, stepping away from making markets. Then counterparties tighten terms. Then the spiral feeds itself. In a clearing system, there's a default waterfall. The defaulter's margin is used first, then their guarantee contributions, then the clearinghouse resources, then broader mutualized funds. That structure exists because failure is expected at the edges. What is not expected is failure at the center. So the fear people have right now isn't silver goes down. The fear is, what if the center is the edge? And that is why this story matters. This topic gets messy because people hear spoofing and think it's just internet folklore. Spoofing is not folklore. It's a specific illegal tactic. Placing orders you don't intend to fill, to move price, to trigger others, then canceling and profiting. Regulators have prosecuted it. Traders have been convicted for it. Banks have paid large fines across the precious metals complex over the last decade. So when people say the last hour of price action looked like old patterns, that's not automatically crazy. It's a comparison, sometimes emotional, sometimes sloppy, but it's rooted in history. Here's the sober version. Even if today's move is entirely legit forced liquidation, the market's trust is already damaged, so any violent flush instantly revives the same fear. Is this a forced reset to protect someone? And that fear matters because trust is liquidity. When trust breaks, market makers widen spreads. They pull bids. They reduce size. That alone can turn a sell-off into a vacuum. Now we get to the lever that always shows up in these episodes: margin. When silver spikes and volatility explodes, the exchange can raise margin requirements. That's standard risk management. But standard doesn't mean harmless. Raising margin into a highly levered, crowded trade is like raising the height of a wall while people are climbing it. Some will fall. If the margin requirement jumps to something like 15% of contract value, that forces immediate collateral decisions. And it can force liquidation, fast, especially for smaller participants. This is why traders call it pulling the ladder. It changes the rules of survival mid-climb. And here's the key: margin hikes don't need a conspiracy to cause carnage. They are mechanical. They are blind. They hit whoever is overextended. But because of the market's history, every margin hike during a crash sounds like a cover story. Volatility management can be true and still function like a kill switch. A silver default can mean 3 different things. Retail default: coin shops and dealers can't source inventory at advertised prices, so they raise premiums, delay shipping, or go out of stock. Exchange stress: the futures market can clear, but delivery becomes constrained. More cash settlement, more incentives to roll, fewer people willing to make metal. Clearing member failure: a broker or clearing member can't meet margin calls and defaults to the clearinghouse. Only 3 is the true someone collapses event. And even then, clearinghouses are built to contain that damage. So the right question isn't will silver default? The right question is the system moving from price discovery to allocation control? Because allocation control is where the real power sits. When metal is scarce, the winners aren't the people with the best chart. They're the people with the best access. Now, about the bank collapse rumor. Large banks sit at the center of the paper complex. They make markets. They intermediate hedges for miners, refiners, manufacturers, and funds. They hold derivative books designed to net out until they don't. A bank doesn't need to be evil to be exposed. It just needs to be big, active, and on the wrong side of a sudden regime change. Here are a few real pathways to pain. A massive short hedge that becomes unhedged. If physical supply tightens while paper price whipsaws, hedges can stop behaving like hedges. A liquidity spiral. As volatility rises, margins rise, collateral demands rise, and funding becomes the real battleground. Basis blowout. When physical premiums explode versus paper, the basis trade can turn toxic. What looked like free money becomes a margin drain. Counterparty stress. If one large participant can't post margin, everyone's risk models tighten. Liquidity disappears exactly when you need it. This is how metal turns into credit, and this is why the rumor always names a major bank. Not because the internet has proof, but because the structure makes it plausible that someone big could be stressed. Important: plausible is not confirmed. Rumor is not evidence. Our job is to watch the signals that would show real stress. If you want to think like a risk manager, forget the hot takes. Watch the plumbing. Here's a checklist. Physical premiums in your region. Are coin and bar premiums rising while paper falls? Are delivery times stretching? Are back order notices spreading? The east-west gap. Does the premium persist for days, or does it snap back? A one-day dislocation is noise. A persistent canyon is a message. Spreads and liquidity do bid-ask spreads widen dramatically. Do you see no quote moments where liquidity disappears? Futures curve behavior is the market moving toward backwardation, near months higher than far months, suggesting tightness, or is it normal contango? Delivery talk, watch delivery notices, warehouse categories, and changes in deliverable stocks. Not just totals, look at what's actually available for delivery versus what's simply in the building. Margin and collateral headlines. Any further margin changes can force more liquidation. Whether you love or hate the exchange, the effect is the same. Leverage gets punished. Funding stress. If broader funding markets tighten at the same time, commodity dislocations can become bigger than commodities. If multiple items on this list flash red at once, that's when default stops being a meme and starts being a risk scenario. So what's the story here? Ending A is the boring, painful one. This was a leverage wipeout. Margins rose. Crowded longs got flushed. The gap narrows. Liquidity returns. And the market resets, bruised but intact. Ending B is the structural one. The West keeps trading paper claims at a discount, while the East keeps paying up for metal. Allocation becomes conditional. Premiums become permanent. And the system quietly forces paper holders into cash, rolls, and delays, without ever using the word default. If ending B is underway, the price is no longer the main signal. Availability is. And if availability becomes conditional, any institution that promised too much metal, directly or indirectly, faces a credibility problem. Credibility turns into collateral demands. Collateral demands turn into funding stress. And funding stress is how banks get headlines. Here's the line I want you to remember. Crashes don't break systems. Shortages do. A crash is a number on a screen. A shortage is a constraint in the real world. So for the next few days, ignore the shouting. Watch the plumbing. Because the plumbing will tell you whether this was a reset or the start of a divorce. If you want, comment just one word. Default. If you think the paper system is breaking. Reset. If you think this was a brutal but normal leverage purge. And if you want more breakdowns like this, no hype, just mechanics, hit subscribe, because the next move won't be explained on the front page. It'll be hidden in the spreads. One last reality check. A rumor spreads faster than a delivery truck. Treat every screenshot as unverified until it shows up in warehouse numbers, dealer invoices, or official notices. If the gap closes, breathe. If it widens, pay attention. Keep your ego out of it always. Period.